Has Mr. Ballin posted? No, I think Mr. Ballin actually quit YouTube. I think he quit making videos. So I don't think we're ever going to watch a Ballin video ever again.
Is a spooky mystery out of China. Now, it's a little bit complicated. However, if you stick it out till the end and you hear about what authorities find up on that mountain, you will have a wild internet rabbit hole to go explore. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload.
All right, you hear that, chat? We have to focus on this one. This is a complicated video with a lot of complicated things, all right? So pay attention. Don't distract me, all right? And focus. Take notes. Lock in.
At 5 a.m. on September 30th, 2008, a 61-year-old man named Xian Tiesheng finished getting dressed inside of the bedroom that he shared with his wife in the city of Beijing,
You
China.
share a bedroom with your wife?
After he finished getting dressed,
weird,
Xian
man.
reached down and scooped up his backpack off the floor that was already packed, and then as quietly as he could, he kind of tiptoed around the bed to his wife's side to give her a kiss goodbye.
Whoa!
Xian was going to be heading out to a local mountain that day for a day hike.
I don't want to
So
hear about
Xian,
you
he gets
kissing
next
your
to his
wife.
and he bends down to kiss her, and right as he does
Whoa!
that,
Bends. Oh, gee. What? Now you're bending down to. Oh, all right. Jesus. Ballin. Keep things PG, bro. I have children in my chat.
he accidentally wakes her up. And so his wife opens her eyes and she looks up at him, and Xian just says, I love you. He gives her a kiss, and he tells her, hey, I'll be back tonight.
Oh my God. I'm so enough of the kissing, man.
Before midnight. And so his wife, she kind of groggily said okay, and she grabbed his hand and squeezed it, and she told him that she loved him, and then she fell back asleep, and moments later,
And that was
Xian
the
had
last
left the
time
bedroom
she ever saw
and
him.
walked out the front door.
Last time.
Xian's home was only a couple of blocks away from the train station, and since he needed to ride a train and then also a bus to get to this local mountain that was about an hour-and-a-half journey away, the train station was his first stop.
It's
And
my
so
first
Xian-
stream. If you see this ad of my boyfriend, his name is V. Hi, V. What the? There's a clip playing on the side. Hi, V. How does it feel to have a name named after a letter? Huh? How does it feel? V.
And as he walked towards the station, he was all smiles. I mean, he was really excited about this day. So Zhen was retired, but he had spent his whole life teaching geography at Beijing No. 5 Middle School. And he was a very passionate teacher, but the thing he was most passionate about, that he routinely really pushed on his students, in some ways more than geography, was his love of nature. In fact, Xian loved
I'm
nature
older than
so
you, Pig?
much that when
That's
he was
impossible.
not teaching, he basically spent all of his off time out in nature going for hikes. I mean, that was his thing. And
Dude,
today,
it's always this shit, man. It's always the hiking stuff out in the middle of the woods. Crazy ass shit happens, man. That's where it all happens, baby. That's where it all happens. I said focus. Lock in, chat. None of this.
today, Jian was especially excited about his hike because he was hiking one of his favorite trails. It was located on
Appalachian
Mount
Trail? Oh,
Miaofeng,
never
which
mind.
is a mountain located 30 miles to the northwest of where Jian lived. And this mountain was quite famous because of all the sacred and ancient temples that kind of dotted the mountain all over the place.
Amy doesn't
And then
ask
also
for
the
much and she's amazing. All she wants is that 112-pound dog. She deserves it.
We have too many animals. We have too many animals.
for all these beautiful roses, like the flower that would bloom all over the mountain in the summer. And so it's just this totally striking.
deserve it? You can't do
normally,
that. That's not
Jian
fair.
Would actually hike up this trail and then actually camp out on Mount Miaofeng, mostly because on the summit there was this incredible view of downtown Beijing. And at night, the view is like spectacular with the city all lit up. But on this particular day, Jian knew an overnight stay was not possible because he had to be back home by the next day because it was his mother's 90th birthday. And he was very close with his mother, and he was not going to miss that. And so Jian eventually made it to the train station. He bought his ticket, he boarded his train, and then he sat down in a seat. And as soon as he did, he opened up his bag and pulled out a stack of papers. For this hike, Jian had packed himself some food and water inside of his backpack. He also packed a newspaper called the Beijing Youth Daily, and he brought along his diary. But his diary was a little bit unique.
A diary? What are you, a girl? What? Wow, that's so embarrassing. Who even writes down their stuff? Like, who even has a journal where you write down all your
Jen, because he loved nature so much and didn't like the idea of wasting anything, what he would do when he was a teacher at Beijing No. 5 Middle School, he would just take scrap paper.
Men don't have feelings, all right? That's why we're men. We push them down, and then later on in life, the only emotion we end up learning how to use is anger, right? So then we just get angry at everything. Because we're men. That's what we do. We punch stuff and hit things and go, angry, right? We don't have emotions. We're men. We hit rock with big rock. We throw rocks. We piss all over the place.
And start writing on that. And he would compile all his scrap paper into these sort of diaries that he would keep. And so the reason he did that was primarily because he was so in love with nature, he hated the idea of wasting anything. And so Jian passed the time on the train by writing in his diary, aka his stack of scrap paper, and also reading this newspaper. And Jian knew he really needed to read the entire newspaper pretty quickly, because by the time he got to the mountain, he was going to do what he always did, which is he would bring a newspaper with him on a hike, and as he walked, he would take out a page periodically and tie it to a tree, kind of marking his way. That way, when he turned around and came back down, he would have his path marked, because Jian did not always walk on a clearly marked trail.
That's pretty smart.
This was his way of not getting lost. And so Jian would ride the train car, and then he would get off, and he would board a bus.
I sent a pic of the dog and off topic. Okay, first of all, really? Yes, the dog is very cute. Yes, I agree. Dog, very cute. Yes, very cute dog. Also, we have a lot of dogs. We have a lot of animals. I don't want to take care of another dog. It doesn't matter how cute they are. I don't want to take care of another dog.
And then finally, right around 7 a.m., that bus
But you don't have that dog.
In the tiny village of Changfang, which is located right at the base of Mount Miaofeng. And so Jian grabbed his backpack, he hopped off the bus, and then began walking through the village towards the mountain. And then by about 7:20 a.m., so not long after Jian had left the bus, he was almost up to Mount Miaofeng when he pulled out his cell phone and he called his cousin. It was a brief conversation, and all Jian really wanted to do was just to make sure his cousin was going to be around the next day for Jian's mother's birthday. And the cousin said he would, and so Jian told him, okay, I'm going hiking today, and I will see you tomorrow. And then he hung up. And then, only a couple minutes later, Jian disappeared into the beautiful forests of Mount Miaofeng.
And he was never seen again, right? It's the woods.
A few years ago, I started noticing that I was getting a whole bunch now. The link is also...
Hey, I got sponsored by Aura too. But if you want to use Bald's code, go ahead. Even though you guys should probably use my code. I don't think they're going to renew me though. My video... The video...
Think of all the adventures you could go with this dog.
Stop! The video that had this sponsor on it did absolutely terrible. I doubt they're ever going to contact me again.
Down in the description below. Again, that's aura.com
Mr.
Ballin to start your 2-week free trial today.
Sorry.
So Jian's wife did not expect to hear from Jian at any point that day because she knew he would have terrible cell phone service up on the mountain. But she did expect her husband to be home on time. He had told her that morning before he left that he would be home that night before midnight. And if you knew Jian, you knew this guy was never late. He said, I'm going to be someplace at a certain time. He would be there. So when 10 p.m. rolled around that night and still Jian was not back yet and he had not called, Jian's wife was actually not worried because she was thinking, okay, well, it's 10. He'll be home in the next couple of hours because he said he'd be here by midnight tonight and he will be here tonight. And so she went to bed expecting to wake up and see Jian in bed with her in the morning. But
in bed? Oh, hold up. Now they're sleeping with each other? Ballin', come on, man.
Jian was not in bed, so he did not come home, and so his wife immediately was very concerned and began calling Jian's family, and nobody knew where he was.
Bet you won't play a D&D game on stream? Yeah, I'll take that bet.
And so that day, the family went to the police, and they reported Jian missing. The local police immediately organized a search for Jian. However...
Thank you so much, Ryu, Goated Pig. I'm goated? On the sauce? Honestly, get a ghostwriter like Ballin and the other dudes, that might help. Yeah, if I had the extra money, 100%. Honestly, I think in the future I would. Not gonna lie. 100% chat. I hate writing scripts. I'm more of a free-form guy. You know, even when I write a script, I just kind of ad lib off of it, right? It's more of a outline. So if I had a ghostwriter and then I just like, you know, riffed off of that script, that'd be nice. But it probably costs a lot of money.
They knew this was going to be a very challenging search. Mount Miafeng is not some enormous mountain by any means. It's a decent-sized mountain, but, you know, it's really known for having these paths that twist
A fan
and
may
turn
do it
all
for
over the
free. I
place.
would never hire someone to write a script for my videos for free. I'm not going to do that.
So it's pretty easy to get lost. And then also there's a
I'd
whole
feel too
bunch
bad.
of sheer cliff faces kind of all over the place.
Oh,
So
that's
if you're
good.
not paying attention, you could literally just walk off a ledge. So in short, this is a dangerous and confusing place. And at the same time,
goofy mood. We will go and get the dog tomorrow. I am just a little sleepy right now, but I want the dog.
I didn't say that. That wasn't me. I didn't say that.
and that the search was happening out on the mountain, the police were also in contact with Jian's cell phone service provider to see if they could track
Why
down
not try to use ChatGPT? All right, I need to stop pausing the video because ChatGPT makes garbage scripts. Like if I want to do like a whatever, like a Mojo type channel where it's just like, you know, AI generated garbage where there's no personality, sure, I would use AI, but no, I don't want to use AI.
Jian's cell phone, because obviously if they could find that, they might find Jian too. But the only way a cell phone can be tracked is if the cell phone is on, because when it's on, it connects
Oh,
to the
God,
nearest
the
cell phone
5G
tower,
towers!
and that's how these
Ah!
service providers are
Get
able
away!
to tell where these phones are. They look
Chat,
to see
close your
which
head!
tower it's connected to.
Block
But
your
when
head!
Jian's cell
It's
phone service
5Gs.
provider looked for his phone, they quickly determined his phone was off. So unless the phone came back on again, they would not be able to locate the phone. However, they were able to pull all of Jian's cell phone signal history up until his phone was turned off. And what they found in this signal history is the day before, so the day Jian went missing, his cell phone was on at 4 p.m. that evening, and he received a phone call at 4 p.m. And the service provider was able to see that when this phone call came in, Jian's cell phone was not where they thought it would be. It was not high up Mount Miafeng. It actually was near the base of the mountain. And when police reached out to the person who had called Jian at 4 p.m., they discovered it was just a friend of Jian's, and this friend said that Jian said he was coming down the mountain now and he'd be home soon. So this new information did
Weird.
basically line up with what Jian had told his family he'd be doing that day.
Amy, the charger is on the table.
You know, just a quick day hike, although again, they kind of expected it to be a little bit longer. It seemed a little odd he'd be down the mountain by 4 p.m., but still, this basically lined up with what they thought he was doing. However, this new information did not help explain what happened to Jian. Like, why was he missing? The expectation was he must have gotten lost or hurt or something up on this mountain. You know, maybe he's stranded somewhere and can't go anywhere. But now, based on this phone call, it sounded an awful lot like Jian was not even on the mountain when he disappeared. So where was he? Police had already checked all the bus stations and train stations in the area, you know, to see if maybe Jian took a different way home or something. But when they went to all these different stations, there was no evidence that Jian had been to any of them. And there was another problem. Members of Jian's family told the police about Jian's habit of tying newspapers to trees.
Ballin takes several minutes to say a guy went up the mountain and didn't come down. Yeah, a lot of times it is like the equivalent of trying to reach a word count on an essay. But, you know, it adds suspense.
To mark his trail as he hiked, and the family told the police that Jian did this every single time he hiked, and his wife told the police that for sure she knew her husband had brought along a copy of that newspaper. So by all expectations, there should be markers up on that mountain literally leading searchers to wherever Jian went. But after an entire day of searching Mount Miafeng, they didn't find a single newspaper anywhere.
Planned?
For the next several days,
Was this a
big
planned
search for
situation?
Jian continued, but nothing was found. That is until October 7th, so 1 week after Jian had vanished. On that day, Jian's cell phone service provider noticed that Jian's cell phone had suddenly turned back on. And the phone was not on or near Mount Miafeng. Instead, it was located 36 miles away from the mountain at a train station called Beijing West Railway Station. Now, the cell phone was only on for a couple of seconds, but it was on long enough for the provider to confirm that it really was in that location. And so the police immediately dispatched a team to go to Beijing West Railway Station and see if they could find Jian. But when they got there, Jian was not there, his phone was not there. They looked at all the security footage, there was no sign of Jian. They searched the surrounding areas. Nothing. And on this day, at basically the same time that police are at this railway station trying to make sense of, what's going on with the cell phone, a villager from Chanfang Village, which is that little village that sits at the base of Mount Miaofeng, came forward with a very strange story. He said on the day that Jian disappeared, this villager was at his little shop. He sold walnuts to hikers that were making their way towards Mount Miaofeng. It was basically like
Thank God it wasn't acorns. All right.
hike.
Thought he was selling.
And he sees this guy walking up through the village towards the mountain, and he
That'd be a
looked
dangerous
exactly like Jian, because now Jian's face was on the news, and this villager had seen it, and so he felt like he had seen Jian. And so this villager said, this guy who looked exactly like Jian, he walked up and actually stopped at this villager's shop to buy some walnuts. And this villager and this man who looked like Jian, they just chatted for a few minutes. And at some point, this guy who looked like Jian, asked the villager, hey, these are great, but where else can I buy walnuts? I want to buy other types of walnuts and bring them back to my family. And so this villager was like, oh yeah, well,
Sir, I very much love your walnuts, but see, I'm somewhat of a nut, if I do say so myself. So if you can lead me to any other nuts to partake in, I would love to have some nuts. What? What is that? What do you mean? What? Huh? He's a bit of a nut for nuts, I guess. I don't. What?
the best walnuts in all of Beijing are actually located about 30 miles away at the base of another mountain. It's called Tietua Mountain, and there are vendors
Bro's
over there
just a
who
walnut
sell the
fan,
best
I
walnuts.
guess.
So that's your answer right over there. And then after the villager said this guy who looked just like Jian, it's like everything changed for him. It's like his expression changed, his tone changed. It's like he's been given this information that's changed his life, about these walnuts. And he says to the villager, okay, I'm gonna go there right now. And without saying anything else, this man just turned and began quickly walking away from the walnuts, back through town, back towards the bus stop. So away
He
from
got the
Mount
walnut
Mianfeng.
fever, baby.
In theory, this guy is going to the bus to what? Commute 30 miles
Is
to
it
this other mountain?
is it the almond of the walnut? Are they squeezing out of the peanut?
Tietua Mountain to get these walnuts?
Bro nutted?
I mean, the villager does not know this guy, but even he felt like this is bizarre. This guy comes up, he's buying snacks to go hike Mount Miaofeng. He seems really excited about it. And I offhandedly mention these walnuts, and he's like, boom, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go 30 miles to this other mountain to get these walnuts. It just seemed weird. And then when police spoke to Jian's family about this new information, they would learn that Jian did not have a special interest in walnuts, and neither did his family. And even if there was a reason why Jian just really wanted these walnuts, he would not have had time in that day to take the bus 30 miles to Tietua Mountain, get these walnuts, go 30 miles back, and hike up Mount Miaofeng, because he can't stay the night. He needs to come back tonight in order to go to his mother's birthday party the next day. So it just made no sense.
Bro really wanted
this
them
walnut
nuts.
thing was basically the only lead police really had, because everything else was a dead end. And so they decided to shift their search area from Mount Miaofeng to Tietua Mountain. And pretty much right away, they saw something that gave them hope that Jian could be here. They found pages
A nut
from
wrapper?
the Beijing
Oh.
Youth Daily newspaper tied to trees on the mountain.
Just a
And when
trail
they
of
looked more
nuts?
closely at the newspapers, they found the publication date of this newspaper lined up with the copy that Jian would have had with him on the day he vanished. And so, of course, the searchers just began following this trail of newspapers.
See, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the man, just came up with this plan to disappear somehow. To, dip. I don't know.
hoping Jian would be at the other end. For 2 days, searchers very diligently followed this trail up the mountain. It kind of wound around, and they went pretty slowly because as they're moving, they're constantly checking everything around. They don't want to miss any clues. But finally, after 2 days of following this trail, they eventually found something. The newspapers led them to a campsite. Now, the campsite was abandoned, but there was a bed of hay, there was some used water bottles, and some toilet paper, and so just from the looks of it, this campsite
You pee in those?
looked relatively active, like somebody had been staying here recently for at least a day or two, and so it seemed pretty likely, based on everything else, that this was Jian's campsite. And pretty quickly, after searching the campsite, they
No
found
nuts? That's
something
what
that
I'm saying.
virtually
Where are the nuts?
guaranteed that this was his campsite. Authorities found this plastic bag that was sitting next to the bed, and inside of the bag was a piece of scrap paper from Beijing No. 5 Middle School. And on this scrap paper was a note. And the note said Jian had indeed hiked up Tiatuan Mountain on September 30th. This would have been the day that he left, so the day he disappeared. And then
What
on
kind of
his
nuts
way
did he eat?
down, he said he got lost and was forced to spend the night out here. And so that explained the campsite. And then on October 1st, so that would have been the day after he spent the night out here, he said he was going to attempt to follow the ridge line down the mountain to a nearby village to safety. And this note ended with the phrase, "Leaving this note here just in case. Love to everyone who passes by." Now, at first glance, this note was like amazing news because suddenly it seemed totally possible that
No
Jian
nuts
was
equal
just fine.
conspiracy?
I mean,
That's
the way
what
the
I'm
note was
saying. Where are the
written,
nuts?
It sounded like he was at least healthy and safe, albeit I'm sure he was not happy to be stuck up on a mountain, but, you know, he loved being in nature, and so he seemed okay. And then he had a reasonable plan for how he was going to get out of there, you know, follow the ridgeline, go down to a village, go to safety. But as the police analyzed this note, they noticed that some things were off about it. First of all, this note basically directly contradicts other facts of this case. Remember, cell phone records prove Jian got a phone call at 4 p.m. on the day he went missing from his friend, and his friend would report that Jian told him that he was coming down Mount Miaofeng and he'd be home soon. But according to the note they found, that was not
Okay,
possible.
this is getting weird.
Because the note said Jian at 4
This is getting
p.m. on
weird.
September 30th, the day he went missing, he would have been on Tiatuan Mountain, either hiking up or being in the process of getting lost and, you know, ultimately making that campsite where he camped out for at least one night. And so in addition to this factual discrepancy with this note, another issue with the note was just the way it was written.
fuck?
Now, Jian's wife had
Get to the plot, Ballin. Have you been listening to anything that's been happening so far? There's a lot. There's a lot to this. He did say he was complicated, chat. You got to pay attention. Lock in, chat. Come on, pay attention.
had a chance to look at the note, and she would say, "That is my husband's handwriting." But the note contained a bunch of very strange language choices that just didn't make
Lamau,
sense
Pig's
for
such a
Jan
goofball. I know, right? You can't take me anywhere.
to be using. For example, this note, which really should have been a first-person point of view, you know, Jian has gotten lost, he's by himself, he's writing to the world, kind of letting somebody know what's going on with him, and so it really should have been written in the first person. My name is Jian, I am lost, here's what I'm doing. But the note was written in the third person. Jian got lost on the mountain, and so he is going to camp out for the night, and tomorrow he's going to make his way out to safety. But despite being written in the third person, it did sound like somebody was talking about themselves. It did not feel like somebody else was attempting to document what Jian was doing. But by far, the weirdest part of this note was the tone shift that happened about halfway through. So the first half of this letter was written, albeit in the third person, but it was grammatically correct and sort of formal, like you would expect from a very well-educated retired teacher. But once you get to that second half of the note, the grammar started being really awkward, and then the very final line, which says, "Love to everyone who passes by," that actually sounds totally awkward in Chinese. So, "love to everyone who passes by" is the translation into English, and that basically makes sense to us. Like, that's not an awkward phrase.
All right.
But
Okay.
if you put it back in Chinese, it's so awkward. It would be like if I tried to say to you, "I take the bus to work," but instead I said, "To work, take bus." Right? Like, I wouldn't say it that way, and it would immediately seem very awkward for anybody who knows me if I wrote or said something like that. And so this last line stood out so much that actually police and friends and family of Jian assumed
Maybe he
must
got
have
really
left that in
high?
there as like a secret
I
message.
mean, he could have just like grabbed some mushrooms, thought that they were like legit mushrooms because he's hungry, and then started tripping balls.
Or a code, like a
And then he
distress
just really wanted some nuts, you know?
signal, especially when you consider the other weird factors around this note. but nobody could figure out what it meant. The day after this note was discovered, a searcher was up in the vicinity of Xian's
Think
campsite
he went
on
nuts?
Tietua
Got him.
Mountain, and they were walking around, kind of retracing their footsteps, looking for new places to search. When they turned a corner, and up ahead, they noticed there was this tree kind of hanging out over this rocky cliff, and dangling from the tree was something gray that looked sort of out of place.
Oh,
And so
God.
the searcher, sensing this
Don't tell me he's hanging from a tree, dude.
could be a clue of Xian's whereabouts, he yelled out for other searchers in the area that he had found something, and then he took off running towards this thing. To
Bro,
see what
don't
it
tell
was.
me you're hanging
When we
from a
got up to
tree.
the tree, he looked up and he saw it was a pair of sweatpants
Oh, okay.
that had clearly been intentionally tied to this branch in the tree. And so the searcher, he reached up and grabbed one of the pant legs and kind of tugged on it. And when he did, all these white things began falling out of the pants and landing on the
Walnuts?
ground. And when the searcher stopped and looked down to see what they were, he couldn't believe it. It was a whole pile of human bones.
Okay, now this is getting weird. What the fuck? What? Huh?
However, they were not Xian's. In fact, nobody ever figured out who these bones belonged to or why they were stuffed inside of pants and tied to a tree on this mountain.
I'm never going hiking? Dude, that's what I'm saying, bro. Thank you, Iron Man.
But the discovery of these bones would open up a whole new mystery, because after these bones were found, all the searchers came over and basically just began combing the area near these bones, and the police began uncovering body after body after body. They found 2 more sets of human bones stuffed into pants and tied to trees, and they found the other bodies at the foot of a cliff, and also inside of this well, and inside of this cave. And so
What?
in total, authorities found 10 sets of
What?
human remains in the vicinity near Xian's campsite,
Wait,
but none of the
is Jen like a crazy serial killer and he goes out there all the time and like murders people?
human remains belonged to Xian. Officials were only able to identify a few of the
Oh,
bodies,
shit.
and they were not able to
He
figure
is
out
nuts.
how they died or whether or not foul play was involved. But the discovery of those bodies did
Dangerous animal? Yeah, I'm sure it's an animal. I'm sure it's an animal that organized hanging pants from a tree and put bones in it.
mean one thing for Xian's case. It meant, all these people had previously gone up Tietua Mountain before Xian went up and vanished. And when these other people went up the mountain, clearly something horrible happened to them, and we don't know what it is. Is there a killer on the loose? Is there some animal or creature out there that's taking people out?
Probably
We
a
don't
snake.
know.
Yeah, it's probably a snake.
But what started to happen since Xian went missing and his story was all over the news in China is that all these other hikers who've been on Tietua Mountain before have begun sharing their experiences when they hiked up Tietua Mountain, and some of their stories about what they've seen on that mountain are horrifying. One person said they were walking up the mountain, they had their partner with them who was a little bit farther back the trail.
Thank you, 6:30 hours, 12 miles. Those grizzlies are getting smart.
And so they're kind of walking up on their own. And the first person, as they're walking up the trail, suddenly sees this guy just kind of come out of nowhere wielding an axe. And he walks up to this person, and all he says is, "Are you alone?" And the hiker's like, "No, my partner's back there. They're coming up here. What's going on?" But the axe man, he basically acted like he didn't even hear their answer. And he just asked it again, "Are you alone?" And the hiker was like, "No, my partner's back there." And the axe man again just said, "Are you alone? Are you alone? Are you alone?" And this axe person kept doing that until the hiker and their partner just turned and ran. And then another hiker shared a story about how they were walking up a trail on Tietua Mountain, and at some point they lifted their head up, and he saw a little ways up the trail, kind of off the trail, so in the tree line, were all these people, like this group of strangers, just standing there motionless.
Dude, this is what I'm talking. The woods are fucking scary, man. I hate the woods, bro. I hate the I hate the deep woods. The deep woods because, bro, like anybody could be out there, man. It's the fucking back rooms, man.
It's kind of half behind trees, like they were kind of trying to hide themselves, but also not. And they were just staring at this hiker, unmoving, not speaking, just staring. And so the hiker, they look up and they see this, and they were so unnerved so quickly that they just turned and left, and they have no idea who those people were. And so obviously we have no way of verifying these other hikers' stories about what they saw on Tietua Mountain, But when you combine their testimony with Jian's story, it really makes you wonder, what's going on up there? The official search for Jian was called off at the end of October, so roughly 1 month after he vanished. But unofficially, the search for Jian continues to this day. However, they still have...
This is why you gotta be the psycho in the woods, then you're safe. You know, I always wondered that. Like, if you ever run into psychos, what if you just out-psycho them? What if you freak them out, right? Like, you just start saying some fucking gibberish and start swinging around an axe or something. Like, they just be like, oh, I ain't fucking with this guy. This guy's crazier than me. You know? What if that would happen?
not found
The
his
psycho
body,
may think it's flirting.
and basically no real progress has been made.
Just start barking and screaming. Yeah.
Before you go, I just wanted to point out that
God, that was interesting. I kind of want to go down that rabbit hole. That's a pretty cool story.
Now it's time to walk away. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Did you laugh or cry or maybe subscribed? I'll thank you either way. You know I will miss you. I hope you return. Tell your friend or your mother to get me more views, please.